So I'm here with Rob Smoke. He is filing a proposed constitutional amendment, and I'll let him describe what it is and then read to us the language of the proposal.
Hi. This is Initiative 131, and it's been filed with the Secretary of State, and last week we had a hearing on it at the Capitol, and the final hearing on it is April 20th. And it incorporates a lot of the language and all of the basic ideas, or almost all of the basic ideas, from the Right to Rest Act. It has the title, the Colorado Homeless Survival Act. The reason for the change has to do with general understanding of meanings. There are various initiatives that have been out there regarding end-of-life choices. So because it says right, the words right to rest could be associated with end-of-life choice decisions, this initiative has, or this proposed amendment to the Colorado Constitution has this title, the Colorado Homeless Survival Act. So with that, I'll just read it, and I'm going to leave out the definitions at the end because they're a little bit extensive, but I'll just give the basic material. Initiative 131, proposed amendment to the Colorado Constitution, Article 2, Section 32, the Colorado Homeless Survival Act, be it enacted by the people of the state of Colorado. In the Constitution of the state of Colorado, add Section 32 to Article 2 as follows, and in parentheses here, Section 32 is, Article 2 is the Bill of Rights. So Section 32 would be a new section. 1A, whereas responding to the crisis of homelessness in Colorado with criminal sanctions designed to push people out of public spaces and into the criminal justice system is costly, inhumane, ineffective, and in violation of basic civil, human, and constitutional rights. B, and whereas human rights that are amply protected in the home and other private places should be extended to the public spaces in which persons experiencing homelessness live to ensure the equal rights of all Coloradans. C, and whereas criminalization of the homeless does nothing to alleviate homelessness. 2A, the state and any county, city, municipality, or other subdivision that has laws, ordinances, rules, or regulations that infringe on the basic rights enumerated in the proposed amendment shall cease enforcement of such laws, ordinances, rules, or regulations, and B, said basic rights shall be enumerated to include prohibition of discrimination based on housing status. 3, the following basic rights are guaranteed: the right to rest in public spaces and protect the right to rest.
I know this means a lot to you, man.
The right to rest in public spaces and protect oneself from the elements in a manner that does not obstruct the use or access, the use of or access to private property. The right to eat, B, the right to eat, share, accept, or give foods in any public space where food is not prohibited. C,
Do you want to take a break?
C, all right. C, the right to occupy a person's own motor vehicle or occupy a motor vehicle of the owner's permission, provided that the motor vehicle is legally parked on public property or parked on private property with the permission of the property owner. And D, the right to a reasonable expectation of privacy on one's personal property in public spaces to the same extent as personal property in a private residence or other private place. 4, every person has the rights enumerated in Section 3 of this amendment and may exercise those rights without being subject to criminal or civil sanctions or harassment by law enforcement, public or private security personnel, or district agents. 5, the provisions of this section do not create an obligation on the part of any provider of services to persons experiencing homelessness to provide shelter or other services when no such services are available or when the rules or policies of the provider disqualify the person from receiving services. 6, as used in this section, unless the context otherwise requires A, discrimination based on housing status means any distinction, exclusion, or restriction based solely on whether an individual has a fixed or regular residence. Discrimination based on housing status also includes any action that disproportionately impacts persons of a particular housing status. Measures taken to ensure equal enjoyment or to exercise the human right to rest are not considered discriminatory. B, district means a business improvement district as defined under Colorado statutes. C, district agent means a person hired by a district. There are a number of other definitions here, starting with harassment, how we define a motor vehicle, what a person experiencing homelessness is, and I'll read that. F, person experiencing homelessness means a person who does not have a fixed or regular residence and who may live on the street or outdoors, in a homeless shelter or other temporary residence, in a vehicle or in an enclosure or structure that is not authorized or fit for human habitation. And I guess I'll read G also. G, public space means any property that is owned in whole or in part by a state or local government entity, or any property upon which there is an easement for public use and that is open to the public, including plazas, courtyards, parking lots, sidewalks, public transportation facilities and services, public buildings, shopping centers, and parks. When used in the context of an enclosed building or structure, the term public space applies only when the building or structure is open to the public. And finally, H, rest means the state of not moving and holding certain postures that include sitting, standing, leaning, kneeling, squatting, sleeping, or lying down. And this was submitted on April 8th, about 15 minutes to the deadline, to the Secretary of State. We submitted a hard copy of the original draft, and then by email we did a marked up version, and we did this final version. And the next step is there's a title board hearing scheduled for April 20th, and the proponents, myself, currently I'm listed as a proponent, and also Therese Howard of D-Hold, Denver Homeless Out Loud, and we have to be there for that, but I believe anyone can be there. And they have a big agenda. They have 31 titles going to the title board, and based on their legal findings, they can reject this. They could say, for one reason or another, that it's not acceptable. I attended a comment hearing at the Capitol last week, just prior to submitting this, and went over a lot of the details. So I think it's good. I think it's good to go.
Did they warn you of any potential legal challenges that they saw, or was that not the focus of the meeting?
I've had various kinds of legal advice, and one of it was to eliminate one entirely, whereas we sort of give a preamble of remarks, whereas responding to the crisis of homelessness in Colorado with criminal sanctions designed to push people out of public spaces and into the criminal justice system is costly, inhumane, ineffective, and in violation of basic civil, human, and constitutional rights. Well, I left that language. You can see on the thing itself, it's in small print.
Mm-hmm.
But that language is in there because it's not automatically understood what right to rest has to do with, and it has to do with laws that have been passed that are targeted at homeless individuals.
And so moving forward, if you get past the title board, then it goes to
well, then
signature collection?
Yeah, we'd have to get a format for signatures approved, and we'd have to get considerable funding to get that done, because I think in Colorado it's a very poor record for volunteer efforts to get signatures done. It really does cost money, and I have no idea.
And the kind of numbers of signatures we need is on the order of...
All over 100,000, yeah.
Okay.
It's 5% of Secretary of State vote in the last election, or the last vote for Secretary of State in the last election, yeah. And people ask me why, if anybody wants to know why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I have I have been homeless myself, and I've seen, I think, a lot of harm from really, elected officials choosing to use the police as technicians of violence rather than people who can help. And when people are, woken up at 2 a.m. And told to move along, and whacked on the soles of their feet to get up, and these are the most vulnerable people in society. There's a certain basic wrongness there. And recently, in the sweeps in Denver, people, so-called sweeps, people have been harassed in a way that is completely unconscionable. Where people who have, maybe found some tiny degree of security with a tent in a public space are told to move out, and then are chased from other places, and then have their belongings taken from them, and on and on. And also in our jails right now, there are, I think in the Boulder County jail, it's close to 20% are homeless individuals, and these numbers equal huge expenditures of resources that could much better be spent on housing. And that resource, there's an obvious crisis around, and using the police to deal with the crisis of not enough low-income housing or not enough housing is.
That doesn't make sense to you?
It makes no sense. And the other aspect is I just don't like bullies, and I don't believe that. I'm not one of those people who believes that the cops are all bullies. I don't believe that at all. But I believe that these kind of laws criminalizing homeless people sort of demands from the police that they behave as bullies, and it's wrong. And I believe that there's a majority of people living in this state who would agree. So.
Right, and what that looks like is, someone can't get into a shelter, they get there too late, or they have another reason they can't be in the shelter, whether it's personal PTSD issues, they don't want to get sick because they're surrounded by people coughing right next to them. But what that looks like then is they go to sleep, maybe they find what seems a safe space, and come 5 o'clock in the morning, an officer comes by,
Yeah.
kicks them awake.
Yeah.
And that happens right here in Boulder, and certainly in other towns.
Yeah, and if you've walked the streets of Denver, in the alleys downtown at 4 in the morning, you'll see people who are just lookouts, who are waiting for, they're looking fearfully at footsteps coming in their direction from police, because that's, police regard that as their job to harass the people who are barely surviving
Right.
in alleys.
And a lot of, go ahead.
And other locations as well. And the other thing we haven't talked about is the cost in actual human life, where people who have hid out, so to speak, from the police are more likely to be victims of hypothermia or be caught in circumstances that put their lives at serious risk. And there's also things like the risk of sexual assault, especially to women. So.
Right. And so there's precedent in other towns. I mean, Portland is now allowing some number, I believe it's half a dozen people to camp together on the sidewalk between something like 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And Seattle has encampments that are actually sanctioned. Opportunity Village in Eugene provides both space for tents and tiny homes.
Yeah.
And yet Colorado seems to be the last one to catch on, and here we're in a town that labels itself progressive, and we need something like this amendment.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for technical solutions. Finding lots, finding places where people can, establish tiny homes or establish tent villages as a temporary thing. And we have things that we've put before the city council in Boulder that have largely gone ignored, like model tiny home ordinances, zoning ordinances, and proposals for creating tent villages as temporary solutions. But what remains disappointing over and over again, I'll talk to a legislator and they'll just tell me how sorry they are that there's no resources. Well, there's tons of resources going to policing, and it really is millions of dollars, and we've seen the Sturm Law School report, but they didn't cover a lot of areas where money is still being spent.
Right.
So.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Derek.